Hey everybody, Mark here. What I want to do today is try to give you some information that if you want to be able to play some lead guitar and stuff, you really need, and that is triads. It's going to be using the CAGED system to teach you triads. So first of all, I want to make sure you understand what I mean by the term triad. It's simply a 3-note chord. It takes the root or the 1 and the 3 and the 5 from the scale of the chord, and that makes up the triad. For example, if I'm using an A chord, I can take that A major scale and number those notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I can take the 1, the 3, and the 5, which 1, 3, 5. And those would make up the notes of a C major triad. Now, in order to play that, I may have to change that around because I can't play the 3rd and the 5th on the same string at the same time. I can only play one note at a time on a string, so I can find this same note down here. I could play an A chord like that if I wanted to. So we're going to learn how to identify triads out of the CAGED positions. I see a lot of stuff on YouTube about CAGED, but I see very little that connects CAGED to triads. As a matter of fact, I see some videos that say instead of learning CAGED, you should learn triads, and CAGED actually teaches you the triads. So we're going to look at that now. But to start with, just in case you're not familiar with CAGED, I want to quickly go through the very basic lesson of CAGED. And this is just the beginning. It's not the full system. CAGED is not an acronym. It is not a word that stands for anything else. It's simply a list of chord shapes, those chords being C, A, G, E, and D. And that happens to spell the word CAGED. So you've got a C shape, an A shape, a G shape, an E shape, and a D shape. And we're going to look at those, use those 5 basic shapes to learn how to make all of our chords and triads all the way up and down the neck. I'm mainly going to focus on major triads today. But going back to the root, 3rd, and the 5th, when you learn these triads, if you figure out where the root, the 3rd, and the 5th is, then learning to make these triads major or minor or 7ths or major 7ths will be real easy. It'll fall right into place if you learn that along with these shapes. So let's take a quick look at the CAGED shapes going down the neck to start with, and then we'll break them into triads. We'll take the C chord and we'll make different chord shapes going down the neck this way, but every one of them is going to be a C chord. Okay, here we go. Let's take the first shape as C. C is the first letter in the word CAGED. The next letter is A. So our next C chord is going to be shaped like an A. And I usually make the A with one finger, sometimes this finger. But if I just slide that shape down to here, those 3 notes would make a C chord. But the next shape is going to connect in the last fret that I'm fretting here, not necessarily the same string every time. The next shape is A. That is a C chord. The sound it makes is a C. The next letter in the word CAGED is G, and it's going to connect here. So my next C chord starts right there, and I make a G shape with these fingers. And the sound it makes is a C. Now, a quick word while I'm in this shape. This shape is not that comfortable to play. You're not necessarily going to play this shape when you're playing a song, but to know this shape, you will know all of the information, the scales and things that comes out of it. The next letter is E, and it's going to connect here. So I bar, where was I? And I make my E-shaped C chord. The sound again is a C, and the last one is the D shape. They connected in the same frets, and I make a D with these 3 fingers, just like if I were playing it down here. Now, that technically is the D shape, but I have found it to be more useful to take this note, which is on the high E, and move it to the low E. And I can do that by moving the ring finger and taking this finger and replacing the note that this one was playing. And still use that as my D shape, but know that it comes from the actual D shape. Okay, that's a quick rundown of the CAGED positions. Now, the same thing would work if you wanted, instead of starting with a C, you started with an A, and you can make A chords all the way down the next. You start with A, the next letter is G in the word CAGED, so the next A chord would be a G-shaped A chord. The next letter in CAGED is E, so your next A would be an E-shaped A chord, and so on. Your D is right there. Your D shape, that's an A chord. So you can do that with all 5 of those shapes. And you can also do that with the triads that we're about to go over. It's taken this long just to get the basic down. Now, let's look at the C chord, and we're going to start learning the triads from it, and we're going to learn them in this direction, vertically. If I just take that note out of the C chord, take the other fingers off, and play the first, second, and third strings, I have 3 notes, and that makes a C major triad. My left finger happens to be playing the root. The third is on the first string, and the 5th is on the 3rd string. So I've got my 1, my 3, and my 5 right there. Now, I'm not going to tell you the root, the 3rd, and the 5th on every single one of these. I may give you a couple of more clues. If you will figure them out for yourself, you'll remember them a lot better. But that's the first 3 strings. If I take the next 3 strings and just take those 2 notes out of the C chord, that's my next C triad. Same thing, I take the next 2 notes, a C triad. And you'll know a lot of times when you play in C, you'll alternate that root. So you can add that note and do these kind of like an E chord, but on the lowest 3 strings. And you have another C triad. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 C triads right there. And when you learn these triads, just to make it a little more interesting to yourself, I would suggest kind of rolling them a little bit or something. Make up your own. Go. Do stuff like that. The next triads, we're going to go horizontally. Again, you would start with this triad that we started with the other one. The next one comes out of this shape, but you just play the first, second, and third string, which is right here. So you've got one C, another C. The next one comes out of that G shape. Now this one, technically it's not a triad because you have a root and a root. You got a root, a third, and a root in it. You don't have a 5th. So you can just use it, though. It will work and function like a C when you're playing a song. Another C triad right there. Same one you had before. Coming out of that G shape, 3rd, 4th, and 5th string. Another C triad. Taking the bottom 3 strings. It's easier to play these if I'm not trying to hold them where you can see them in the camera. But again, it's not about being able to play these shapes all the time as much as it is. If you're coming out of this shape right here, it's knowing where those scales are. The next triad would be here, coming out of this shape. The next one is your D-shaped chord. And that gives you C. Hear how well that one worked doing that. Then you do the same thing out of those shapes, taking the next set of 3 strings. Same thing. Use the next set, and so on. What I'm going to show you real quick now is how to do a basic, like a 1-4-5 chord progression. That's, again, the notes of the scale, the first, the fourth, and the fifth, which in the key of E would be the chords E, A, and B. I'm not worried about sevenths and things like that right now. But I'm playing the second string, the third string, and the fourth string for my E. And I'm going to play the same three strings for my A chord. And move it up, and I've got my B. And that gives me my three primary chords in the key of E. So I can play out of this position. And that's just made up on the spot. I could make it sound better. And we can move that around in different places. Instead of E, let's just go to this E. We would come out of say, this G shape, E. And I'm gonna go back to this A. I'm using the second, third, and fourth strings. And I'm gonna use this B right here. And I may drop down and catch the first string there out of it. So out of this one. Just playing out of those positions. Play around with it. Learn where they are. This will give you a head start on a lot of what's to come. Okay, if you stayed with me this far through the video, I know that some of this stuff can be kind of dry to go over and learn, but I promise you, if you will study that a little bit, it will really start to open up the neck. And I've got a lesson planned I think will be a lot of fun, and this is going to give you this, and probably the next video I do will give you the background to help you understand what we're talking about when it comes time to take the CAGED system and show you how to use it to actually create a solo. See you next time.